You're most welcome back to the GMODISM channel. This is your host Eric and we're here for some more Imperial testing. This is a follow-up to a video I made a good bit some months ago basically, where I thought I made a 3000mm cannon. And how to do this, because the limit from the depth is 2000mm with the cram cannons. Well, my thinking was basically that the missile system has a huge launcher, and the huge launcher is basically 3 meters wide. Thus, the projectile on it must then be 3000 meters wide. This is wrong. As can be seen in a Civs controller, you can see we have the main rule set. We can set it to target different things dependent on projectile diameter. And here in the little tooltip, you can see 2000 is for huge. That means that unfortunately the shell gauge of cram cannons, largest type, 2000mm, unmodded of course, which I always play, is the same as huge missiles. My bad. In our previous test we had some accuracy issues, as you may imagine. And I did some cool deco updates, so let me show you this. Bam! It now ejects a spent case. I don't know why, but it really looks like a projectile, and I like it. Let me destroy the magic for you. Look at this thing. This is how it looks if we are just looking at, like, removing the mimics. This is it. And if you missed the last video, you can check it out if you would like to see how we basically did this. But what it basically is it is a huge launcher, which is, well, set to reverse launch it. So it is, well, inside of here, if we use these ejectors, we can set the ejecting elevation to -180 degrees, and that gives us a really high launch speed. Also, it yeets the missile through the launch pad somehow, and can also yeet it through some blocks in front of it. So I saved and had only one block in front of it, which is the heavy heavy armor duct. And it just works, as a famous game developer said. And it deals a lot of damage. And thanks to thanks to the fact that we are launching this in a reverse angle, it means that the game kind of doesn't apply drag to the missile, because drag is applied in front of the missile and to the side. So you can see it eventually slows down, but it takes a little bit of a time. Why does it take a little bit of a time? Well, because it needs to slowly start to deviate and glide sideways thanks to, or because of gravity, and then it starts to get the drag applied to it. It has no propulsion because, well, it is launched backwards. This little mimic I put on it basically makes it look like it's in the right way, and that's of course something I like to have. It is just 2 reinforced bodies. We did a lot of tests before. Turns out that the Thumper head or whatever we put into it weren't better. Just 2 reinforced bodies were the most reliable. And launching reinforced bodies is usually a bad idea, but because we're launching it backwards using my jank methods, it kinda doesn't get drag applied. So, Matros First Class Omicron in the army of GMODISM did submit some stuff which we should be looking at. And that is a ballistic breadboard system. And Omicron has, thanks to this, thanks to some shells we are going to use in a test moving forward, and thanks to, well, another thing that will be coming up in a video, has been promoted to Matros First Class. Previously a Matros Second Class, so congratulations! And that's thanks to the hours Omicron put in to help us do very cool stuff and give us good suggestions, like testing the interceptors and that stuff. Very helpful. Usually you can't climb in the ranks in the AOG unless you participate in the official challenges, but you know, sometimes we make exception for exceptional contributions. This is, as you can see, absolute spaghetti. I don't understand anything of this. This is like advanced stuff. So I understand this is common ballistics calculation, but I don't know. I did math like this more than 10 years ago. I haven't, you know. So I had to badger Omicron for some, tips and tricks and basically explain that to me a little bit. So now I can, let's hold our thumbs, apply it in this little video. Then it also turns out that our Kovrax is an elevated GMODISM in ECCLESIARCHY, which means a YouTube member. I know that. But Kovrax is also a cadet. So thanks a lot for supporting the channel monthly. I tend to forget my cadets sometimes because usually we read up the from lieutenants and up, which we're actually gonna do right now. I guess we'll see in post if this is even visible, but huge thanks to Captain Awesome Papper, Commanders Ben Velkin, Delphin, Lieutenants Ali, Anto, Cravey, Flars Dagan, Daniel Saikin, Ohm, Parbagreed, Vincent Veritas, Rick Prell, and Scooby Rocks, and of course to all our cadets, like Kovrax. Now let's get back to making this little pneumatic system here. So Kovrax has built a Lua code, which is to be used for other things. Now I look at it on my other screen, but we'll look at that later and see if we can apply that too. We had some different suggestions, maybe add an APS, a plasma, or a cram. We should try out the different methods and see which works best. But first out, we had a little interesting setting we'll need to look at. You can do something like this. You can go in here and you can set it to, or actually it's on the launch pad. Here, you can set it to default guidance, straight. Current missile forwards is one option. And this one is sea skimming, which is the default one that mostly is used. And then we have straight firing line. Then the thing is, I noticed they kind of behave a little bit differently. So we should test them and see how they perform at different angles, see which reaches the furthest or the best trajectory basically. So let's just fire this at this angle, pretty high. And we can see how they kind of perform. You can see the middle one is getting behind here. And the thing is, you may need to do this test several times to come up with a valuable result. But around here, they reach no longer 3,000 meters, which is a pretty good range, to be honest. They like start to deviate a little bit in their angles. It depends a lot on chance how the first drag tends to affect them. Yeah, now you can see that the sea skimming is like moving, or we're moving a little bit more. I don't know, I did the test before and the conclusion I came up with that time was that current missile forwards is the best setting. I don't see much of a difference, but sea skimming is probably the worst. It has the most chance to affect it negatively. So in any case, now we should be looking at the little code here, which I conveniently installed at the AI here. And I noticed that it needs to be spawned forwards in order for it to work. Here we have the AI Breadboard by Omicron. And you can see here we have a lot of things getting the enemy's position and trying to, well, adjust where we're shooting at basically. So we have an idle azimuth and elevation, of course, to control it. And then we have a fire now command, which we set up to this in particular. For testing purposes, we of course want several versions at once to check out the different metrics. So for this one, for example, we're gonna keep the previous just, well, no proper guidance setup here. And then we're gonna make a version that also is using some guns to try and aim. And basically we can have several ones here, so we can test different weapon systems, like 3 of them perhaps, and just make sure that everything is set up as it should be. So to make this work, I think we should copy this setting, remove this entirely, and then just, thank you. And then we're gonna go on top of this thing and put a weapon controller in an area where it will actually not control it. So no weapon controlled, this is good. We can paste whatever settings we had there. And we can basically do the same for these ones. And these ones. And remove their other local weapon controllers. Now we don't have a system that controls everything on the turret, but it tries to control one thing. So we have some different options. We have APS, we have plasma, we have cram. So we're basically gonna set up everything of it. We don't need to have a complex system at all, really. We just need to have the right velocity, so to say. So on this side, we can set up a plasma. No, a APS, right? So we are controlling that. And if we have an ammo intake here and a little barrel, we should be able to set up a shell here. And yeah, let's see here. So we want to match it with the muzzle velocity of the launcher, which is 333 meters per second. So we're just going to check it out a little bit in here. If we can get some more details on this. No, we can't really because it only shows it there. Okay. So we're gonna assume it is exactly this then. Let's see if it says anything more in the missile controller. Possibly stats. Yeah, it doesn't. So we'll have to assume it's exactly 335 meters per second. So setting up our shell here, we can basically have a big solid thing and just modify 333. So we can just drag this down then to, okay, too many. Make this a solid word body 2. I'm thinking not having a neat head like that, but okay, we need more. So I'll just tune this down then, I guess, 335. And I guess it should now aim using this weapon, I think. Right, next up we have a cram system, and we're obviously going to do, oh, this is going to be real hard. Yeah, so this is probably not going to work. It only goes 300 meters per second, so obviously this won't really work. Well, I guess we can have a tiny little cram system there. Perhaps it needs to have an actual thing. And inside of there, yeah, it only goes to 300. So it should be a bit off, basically. And as for a plasma system, I'm thinking the plasma system may be pretty good because it doesn't probably need to utilize that much ballistics since the gravity is kind of low for missiles, right? And inside of here, we can have the nice thing to set the accelerator energy, thus making the speed. Now it needs a bit of a accelerator, as they call them. And now we should be able to have a speed, right? Accelerator charge. So now we should be able to tune this to exactly 235. And that was a little bit harder than I'd wanted to. So let's set it a bit slower since we may get some drag then. So 10 meters per second slower. Yeah. Interesting. So we should set up all our platforms in God mode. And probably disable them firing a little bit. So we can fire them manually. And then we're gonna get in a target at some, let's say 2000, maybe too far. Let's get in a crossbones here. And we're gonna set this crossbones to, well, not firing and offline here. So then I suppose we can pause the game and enable all these firing modes here and see what happens. Well, this one shot, it basically, without any calculation, just wing it. And here you can see we had some... They were trying to fire there, did they not? Oh, but they're not aiming the turret too. That's a bit problematic then. Oh, and over there we had a shell fired. Have you fired at all? I think it hasn't. So I'm just gonna manually fire this. And oh, that's dead center. Omicron system is dead center. Here we can see our... Did that miss? Yeah, we missed that shot from the non-guided setup. Very interesting. Perhaps we should turn off them firing and hopefully they will still be able to aim. So if we take the system and like manually aim them, perhaps they will use the onboard systems. I don't know. I guess we'll see that since... Oh, look at that. Now we have the cram... Oh, look at that. That APS was actually pretty dead on. Yeah. That works. Maybe it was just luck. And if we try to fire this one as an example, it should then miss, right? And if we fire this one, well, I think its aiming should actually... No, it looks like we're overriding aiming if we aim it manually. So if we just fire this thing... Now, I can't drag down the time, because then these won't really work. Or usually doesn't at least, but let's try it. Sometimes they kind of get stuck when we pause it or remove it like that. That's a lot of damage though. I'm just gonna fire this and pause it so we can follow it. Because before, when we slow down time, the missiles kind of acted in a weird way. So if I understood it correctly, Omicron's breadboard, which works absolutely fantastic, is aiming at center of mass. It's originally built for cram cannons, but it works pretty well. And I needed some examples seeing it being set up, so we can spawn in that too. Which is this, the Kestrel Ballistic breadboard thing. And here you can see, we are trying to aim there and fire basically. Right, so I fired a round here again with the weapons, and the one with the plasma is going under here, it's undershooting. And the one with the cram cannon, that's basically flying dead on, as does the APS one. I feel the APS one is a bit more accurate, of course, because it is, well, it is more accurate. So first of all, we are going to test this non-guided system and basically just shoot this and see it completely undershoots it, as expected. Here we got our weapon systems again, so we'll fire, aim up there and fire. And here we can see the cram variant is doing a real big lobby. It's overshooting it, and that's because of the accuracy. Now, I wonder if the plasma one hit. I didn't actually see that, so we'll need to check that again. They have reloaded, so I'm going to fire them, then pause the game, get back to slow speeds, because now it's pretty safe to... Well, I think it's safe at least. So now we can modulate the speed a little bit more. Yeah, the plasma one doesn't work at all. Both the cram one and the APS one is more accurate. The cram one is overshooting it and the plasma one is undershooting it. And that's of course because we had trouble. It is faster than the cram weapon it's being on, so of course it's gonna be a little bit bad. But I feel like we don't need to use these systems. The APS one is more accurate. The unguided version is of course completely useless, so we don't need to use that, but I want to try out the Lua system too. Now, I'm actually pretty surprised that this does hit from such a distance. Having the APS as a guidance was a really good idea. Now we only ejected the shell. I think we didn't reload. There we go. So now we're gonna follow this shell and see if it can hit. Yeah, doing a pretty good job, doing 162 kinetic damage. That's a lot though. That's like among the best APS, right? So let's try out Omicron's bread here. So we are gonna do a fire and we're gonna see if it is accurate. And yeah, it lands dead on as well. At this distance, it looks like it is quite accurate indeed. Now, we of course need to up the difficulty, but first I'm gonna see if I can get Kovrak's Lua system to work. I don't know what I'm doing here, but here we have the Lua box. And I'm just gonna find out the code here, which I'm gonna copy somehow. There we have it. So I'm just going to paste it in here and start running this. Now we need to disable the local weapon controller in here. Right, so we're gonna turn that off. And we'll need to name the turret to X. Is it? Let's see here in the code if it is X with a large or small. And I do have two turrets. It is a large X here. So there we go. And then probably this turret as well. And it should then just work. We'll see. We'll see. So this Lua box, I wonder if it's... Oh, it didn't? What the... Okay. I didn't... Okay, apply changes. There we go. Apply changes and then exit, right? Now we have it. And it did fire here. Let's see here if it's possible to just port it directly. I don't know if it is. If it will recognize the velocity of the weapon here. And it seems to not really recognize the velocity, so it doesn't provide a trajectory. Alright, so I've been sitting here and looking at this little Lua code. So we had an issue where the Lua code just didn't hit the target. And it didn't hit the target because, well, it seems that the gravity on missiles is a lot different than other projectiles. So eventually, after a good long time, I found this little equation where we have gravity loss. So I hold the gravity loss value, and now we are doing some pretty cool things. Look at this. Now the projectile is flying, and just holding this value, bam, makes us hit the target. So that seemed to have been the trick to make the Lua code work for missiles, because our cadet Kovraks did set it up to target, well, using APS and cram cannons that were pretty slow. But now we made it work for missiles, and that's really cool. I never really tinkered around with Lua, so even though it's really simple, I'm pretty happy that I managed to somehow make it work. Right. We of course need to compare these. I don't know, I may have just messed up the code, making it work at this distance exactly and not then at any other distances. And we will see when they have to take bearing into account and things like that. Now, what we definitely would like to check is the code here by Omicron. So, or not the code, this is the breadboard by Omicron. We have a lot of different values here, so we can actually customize this a good bit. And I did get some instructions on how to, well, set it up basically. So we have something here called, let's see where it is exactly. I think it was this value, right? Where we have weapon placement from center of mass. So, in the instructions here, the vector represents the offset between the weapon and the vehicle's center of mass. Format is right, up, forwards. So basically, this kind of depends on that we are shooting from the center of mass. And obviously the center of mass is now offset a little bit by approximately, let's see if we can find the center of mass. It's around here, yeah. Like between these blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-ish, 12 then. So the center of mass should then be offset by 12, I suppose. So let's get back to the breadboard. There we have it. So we can input that here, and that may increase the hit rates a little bit. Now, center of mass right there. The values represent right, up and forward. So the center value is probably going to be positive 12, right? For this vehicle. And offset from the turret to the weapon. Oh, right. Okay. We have another thing to check out here too. I'm a bit unsure really which of the turrets it would be then, but let's estimate it to 3. It should be better than it is otherwise. Well, that's very nice. And look at that. Now we have a fixed or a variable velocity. What is that? Fixed or variable velocity. Whether we use a fixed 0 or a variable velocity. So here we can basically switch in between 2 different modes. I don't really know which one it's using, but I do know that the speed is 335, and that seems to be, yeah, that seems to be what it was set up to actually follow. So this may now be a little bit more accurate then, I suppose. Fixed angle. Well, interesting. Now, it's always hard, at least for me, I don't know, to understand a big breadboard like this. It's easier to understand a breadboard when you built it from scratch. Not that I could build this from scratch. This is... I haven't looked into ballistic calculations for a long time, so I'm just confused here. And again, it is mainly set up for cram cannons. But in any case, if we go to this platform here and, well, let it just aim, we should fire this, and hopefully this will now be a really good hit. It actually now undershoots it a little bit. This one is the Lua controlled one. It seems to be quite off in terms of bearing there. That is worrying. If I fire this one, I do need to aim it manually because I turned it off. And it seems to be hitting pretty reliably. As for this one, it is auto aiming, of course. We are gonna... Oh yeah, it comes in perfectly there. That's nice. Well, I basically think we should test it against some moving targets like the crossbones. So if we just spawn a crossbones here, their civ system may be a little bit of an issue, so we're just gonna turn off their AI like that. And most likely, I think perhaps we can set up a, I don't know, like every 1 second, can you like fire all weapons? That would be nice. let's see, our weapon systems. Somewhere around here, weapon there. Weapon systems, fire, right. So they'll just fire the weapons every second. And I wonder if perhaps everything is online like that. So if we just make sure that this local weapon controller is online though, and if I just set this to a lower priority, right, and have this as a higher priority, I think it may work. And we can set this thing to basically not fire. And we'll see if this is gonna work, if it's gonna use this one to aim. We'll see basically. I'm not entirely sure, because I think it should average the weapons that are on it or something. It is. Oh, that is ready to fire though. So if I were on this platform and just manually fired it, it will land on target. Okay, good. This thing is like doing serious damage. Yeah, we'll have to test more ships. Actually, I think we may need to save down all of these platforms, zero the stats on them, and reload it all so that we can calculate by looking at the stats which has dealt the most damage. So I'm just gonna do that off cam too. Right, setup is complete and I've zeroed the materials there. So now we can start measuring. This is the APS, this is the Lua, and this is the breadboard. So if we basically just make sure we are, of course, well, protected, I think we should be able to start spawning in some enemies and basically see which hit rate is the best. I think we can probably start with a crossbones again, but perhaps at a bit of a longer range. So they can start out trying to shoot them at 4,000 meters. That could be pretty cool. I also color-coded the shells. So the APS is yellow, the Lua is blue, and the breadboard is magenta. So we can easily just pause it anytime. Very interesting. At this distance, the drag is just a bit too much, so it looks like neither of them were able to hit. We'll have another volley in coming. Just making sure I don't control anything. Oh! No, we didn't get a hit there. The breadboard one almost hit it. But it is... like, none of these systems do take into account the drag that the missiles do experience. Since I don't know really how to calculate the drag here, because when they are fired exactly as they should be, they essentially have zero drag. But when they are fired in a way... Ooh, almost. Yeah, but when they are basically drifting off into the air, they do get some drag, but it feels a little bit random how the air affects the backwards fired missiles, so I don't know really. It's hard to calculate something that depends on chance, basically. The crossbows is kind of zigzagging a little bit there, so it looks like it's not gonna hit for this first round. One thing that we should try to is to install magnets on them and see if we can use magnets to kind of make them almost guided. We'll see though. And yeah, I'm also not entirely sure, even if we turn on the AA of the crossbones, I'm not entirely sure they will have an easy time to actually engage them. They may actually, perhaps, avoid detection altogether. They may be undetectable. It's possible that the shells are undetectable. Well, we're gonna test against the Megalodon later. The Megalodon has a decent... Ooh, we got the first hits there. Look at that. Yeah, the crossbones can't shoot them, but the Meg might. So it has some good lambs, so that we can see then. Bam, bam, bam. Now they all start to hit, basically. Whoops. Well, I guess it can have a little volley. See if any of the guns would be possible. Could detect and shoot the shell. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So they can detect them. They can detect them. It's just that the AA system isn't really set up for that, but actually our targets are not doing Civ's duty. That makes sense. You can have, of course, a all-in-one local weapon controller, then a all-in-one Civ's controller, and have them at different priority. I'm just gonna turn off the firing there because we don't really wanna test shooting them down, right? We just wanna see damage being dealt. Oh! We may have hit something important there on the poor crossbones. In that case, while that is the spawning, I think we should get in a Megalodon. 4,000 meters is a little bit steep, but the Megalodon, of course, is, well, pretty quick, so it's gonna be into range in not too long. I just wanted to see how the lambs, if they're able to take out these shells or not. Oh yeah, they can take them out. At least some of them did. Oh, no, none of them did hit. Think we can have another volley and see how it goes. Have another swarm incoming. And yeah, Civ system is actually struggling to shoot at them. But I'll just leave them on for a little bit more, just for the fun of it. See if they can take them down or not. May skew the final stats, but I'm thinking that we'll just do a couple of tests, keep it up there, and hopefully it will just even out in the end. And well, I think we got a good hit there. Let's see here. And volley. Bread, Lua, and APS. Bam! Those were hits. They are all doing a good job actually at hitting. The breadboard and the Lua setup is of course very amazing, but I think it will make life very easy for people who may not want to tinker with that too much if you can just use an APS as an aimer. That's pretty nice. And I don't know that's right. So the pretty cool thing with this system as well is that shields will not help. Missiles, you can't deflect missiles with shields. I don't know why, it's just not possible. Even though they can be quicker than cram shells, they can't be deflected. So it is immune to shields, which is pretty cool. And this type of damage, of course, is doesn't care about a lot of things actually. It just deals a lot of damage. It's a pretty simple way to deal damage, but effective. I'm actually a bit surprised how well it performs. And right now, all of them shells are dead on target. I can't believe it was so easy to just half a value of a gravity like loss constant. That feels almost too easy. I remembered somewhere in the back of my head that the default missile gravity was like half normal gravity or something like that. And I guess changing that value makes it dead on exact. Yeah, and the really cool thing too with this weapon system is that if we just build and like load in the lobster, each of these are 32,000, so they are pretty cheap. Considering the damage they're dealing, they are pretty cheap. This is very interesting indeed. Oh. And we're just spamming like empty cases too. That's pretty funny. Need to set it up on by Breadboard to only fire after the main system is fired or something like that. Yeah. I think we're getting a bit too close. Are we gonna collide? Well, it's just coming in closer. Now, of course, nobody's gonna have a hard time hitting. That's gonna be pretty obvious. Oh yeah, maybe the pink system, the Breadboard system over there. If it crashes, I'll just despawn it. Funny idea. What if we spawn in a Geiger, the DVG airplane? So we have our bread, our Lua, and our APS systems. Let's see here. Oh, shot fired. Ooh. It's gonna insta-die if we hit it, but I suspect it's gonna be pretty difficult to hit a flying target like this. It's the pneumatic cannon like this is obviously built to target something that's really quick. Oh wow! That's pretty close. The APS was pretty close, that's surprising. In Cadet Kovrak's Lua, there is a lot of values to tinker around with too, so I'm sure that this Lua code could be adapted and upgraded to work for this really well. Now, the bread one was very close as well. Looks like for aircrafts of this type, like flying around like this, it seems that the Lua is struggling to perform a hit. Oh bam, there we actually got a hit. The Breadboard actually managed to land a hit. Not a very good hit, but a hit. That's pretty neat. Alright, and there we go. Lua is off again. The APS variant almost hit. Bread. Close but no cigar. Right, we have another volley incoming here. The funny thing is that even though we are using huge missiles, we have a pretty good reload time. Oh bam, look at that. Look at that. That was a great hit. Wow. Amazing. Was that the APS? Bit unsure actually. Let's spawn in the Yamato and do some more tests. And by that I mean the unupgraded Yamato by Martin Setopads, the Ultra Battleship Yamato that is his upgraded version. Well, the battle test is running. I think we're gonna turn off this firing though, even though this laser adds effect. I don't want to have the big crans all around the place all the time. Right, so also we don't want the sieves active because it may like now the lamps are active. That's a problem. We are gonna do some modifications to it very crudely. We're just gonna apply a bit of a explosive. We're just gonna blow up the main outputs for the lamps basically. It's like a crude fix basically. And of course the Yamato has a lot of repair bots, so I suppose they will just be repaired then too, but well, whatever. It's boring if they shoot down all of them, you know? Look at that already! Yeah, okay, it has repair bot spam. You'll just have to remember, pink is bread, blue is Lua, APS is yellow. It's very interesting to see when they do come in and hit. They deal enormous amounts of damage. This thump damage is really scary. It's a really like hard-hitting turret, even though it doesn't hit that much. I think there actually may be a good practical use for this system for some future battleships we are making. Granted, it is a little bit jank, you know, since it does rely on shooting a missile backwards through its launcher. So yeah, there is that. But I do suspect that basically all of the shells we shoot are incoming now, and you can see too that they are actually aiming for center of mass. So this is something that will make them be classified as cheese territory. Having Lua or other ways of aiming at center of mass may not be the most, well, the most allowed system at all places. Now they come in here and all of them hit. That's so beautiful. They all just hit. And a new volley. Bam. It's not in the level of mass drivers, but it's definitely in the territory of dealing really a lot impact damage. I must say, I do find this system more impressive than I first anticipated. Like, with this aiming system, even just a simple APS controlling it like we set up, it actually makes this a viable system, which is pretty cool. So I obviously have to fix this little turret. Well, I do think that we are getting in a little bit too close here. And since some of the platforms are just set up to constantly fire all the time, I think the best thing would be to just pause the game and to check out the stats for each of the turrets. We'll let them have one extra shot, and then we're gonna pause the game and check out how much damage we have dealt. Right. First out, we have the breadboard control systems. With 18% hit rate, this is less important because, you know, two of them are just auto-firing. But in any case, with 18% hit rate, and this is more important, we have a total value destroyed of 700,000. So, next up, we have the Lua system. And let me find, oh, there we had missile controller. Here we have a, oh, okay. Here we have 265 total material destroyed. So we have, oh wow, look at that. We have like double the hit rate, but that's because it doesn't just fire automatically. It's, you know, like that. And then we have this thing. We have a 17% hit rate. This is also auto-firer, of course. And we have a total of 622,000 materials destroyed. So the APS controlled is slightly worse than the breadboard, but there is actually not a big difference, to be honest. That is quite impressive. Yeah, that's quite insane. I actually thought that the breadboard would be much more accurate, or like all of them are very accurate, not that, like, but I would expect a larger difference. But I think maybe also Omicron put in some really cool like tuning options in there so you can really fix things and set it up to be more accurate in detail. And it is possible that I just didn't understand how to set that up properly, and with a more proper configuration would have a much larger difference. I don't know. I guess we'll see later on then. But just to confirm again, here you can see we have so much less shots fired from the Lua system. And perhaps even Kovrax will do some tests, and perhaps one can adapt it to missiles in a way that it will be more accurate. But very cool to see. I do like it when it's not always the best thing to set something up with very complex bread, but sometimes it might be likewise good to set it up with just a APS guider system here. One thing I do want to try, however, is to swap the loadout a little bit. So what if we had a magnet instead? So there is mine magnet. It will make it deal a lot less damage. But yeah, magnet start time, 3 seconds, set it to max. What if we fire magnets, right? What if we just shoot magnets? So now we're a bit close here, and I am a bit worried that it may matter where we put the magnet, but I'm gonna set them up with magnets, all of them, and this is gonna be the huge magnets, so they're gonna be very, very strong compared to the smaller magnets. These are quite crazy. The Geiger is at max distance. We're gonna make sure we don't control anything. All right. So if I just pause the game here, I wanna see if we can like see them bend in air or something. 2, 3, okay. Now they should be activated. Oh yeah. They're actually a bit... Look at that. They are actually a bit guided. They do half the damage though, so that's not great. But look at that. That's pretty cool. So we can probably switch to a magnet loadout for targets that are harder to hit. Like the Marauder shouldn't be too easy to hit at a distance like this. Oh, look at that. They are like a bit guided. This is cool. Alright, so that one is dead actually. Let's go to ships and spawn them. Let's spawn like a Marauder at max distance. This is a bit too funny. And I wonder too if we can set up a APS cannon to be the guider. 1, 2, 3. Now it should be activated. Let's see if we have other flight properties now. As long as we get within some, what is it, 400 meters range. We're too far away. Next volley maybe. Yeah, they're just dead in the water here. I think the Marauder has to get a little bit closer for it to even get there. And we're just chugging out shells there, that's crazy. Alright. Failing to locking on to an actual target. 2000. We're ticking down. The funny thing is that these are like gonna stay here in the water for like some, I don't know, 160 seconds I think it may be. We're building a crazy minefield. Even though this is just kinetic shells, they're gonna be pretty scary. To just give you an example, let's spawn one 400 meters away. I think that's gonna be close enough for them to kind of activate. And we can get over here, okay. Here we have, alright. A little bit closer than like that perhaps. And we have a lot of Marauders here. And now you can see the magnets, sure, they're not like super scary, they're just accelerating it, but these balls are so darn heavy. They are real killers even at like slow speed. And now we got new ones popping in here too. Ooh, we are pretty close to get this mine activated. Look at that. It is ticking down, the marauder is increasing its length, and it's gonna be here for a while. Okay. Oh yeah, look at that. No. Any second. Ah. It's like staying out of range. Look at that. Oh, you are closer. Oh yes, look at that. They're gonna go backwards to the marauder though, so that's a bit stupid. But yeah. Halving the damage, but nice. Maybe a good idea. Maybe a good idea. Look at that. That's pretty funny. And also, if we just have them circle around the target like that, they're gonna be so annoying. Yeah, we'll just have to check. When we have a cannon like this, the health is 90,000 and the reload time is 20 seconds, right? And if we switch this to a reinforced body, it's still 20 seconds, okay. One thing I do want to try is, what if we just do like... What if we just do other loadouts? Like if we have a magnet and an EMP warhead or something. I think we can test out that. So we're gonna swap this to a... let's just have a, like... Whoops. I mean a 180 frag for that one. And you are gonna have a... And it doesn't seem to matter which way to go, right? You can have just an explosive then, I suppose. For these... It looks like which is the... But now I'm thinking it may be beneficial to have a Thumper head when we have the magnet activated. It's only gonna work for the one with the magnet behind like that, of course. But if we have a... Thumper head, it may go forwards first. It's pretty short, this setup, so I'm not sure that's gonna be the case. Let's spawn another random ship here. I'm gonna have the Tortuga, which I completely forgot is a carrier of sorts. So I'm going to... Actually, it may be funny that we have magnet controlled shells coming in here. Look at that, look at that. Oof. That was it, wasn't it? We got the blue one. I don't remember which has the which payload now. That's an explosive? No. I don't remember I set up any explosives. Maybe an old one. Alright. I hope we don't target the one that's like closest. So let's just check whatever we have here. Huge gantry. This is the Thumper. This is probably the one I'm most interested in checking out. 10 seconds, right? This one is frag, and this one is EMP, and the Lua controlled one has their oh no. Okay, now I'm over here at least. Yeah, it doesn't matter which way they come in, it seems. Oh! Bam! Look at that. I think the Thumper head doesn't matter here, because the magnet is in the back. the magnet is actually going and hitting the target first. It looks like we may have some speed difference, however. Is that the case? So the Thumper head may be quicker. Alright. When it gets into the water, probably. Not sure. It just goes and that kind of breaks, right? And it looks like it's forwards, right? But it's actually backwards. It is actually backwards. Yeah. But it looks better when it's fired in such a way, I think. So, let's see which is the odd one out here. Magnet first, Thumper head then. Magnet first. I guess we can switch to the magnet. And you be a magnet here. Oh, and if we have only magnets, how much damage are we gonna do then? Very little. Well, I guess we should check how much damage it would be if we have a ballast tank instead. We don't have to be float like that. We could make them actually sink as well. Doesn't matter for their properties like that, but checking this, however. If we set this to a reinforced body, 880, and if we set this to a ballast tank, 8, oh, that's basically the same. So we can set it to negative buoyancy. That's nice. I like that. Because then we should be able to hit submarines as well if we kind of get... yeah, I'm not sure. It may be nice that they're just laying there on the surface too. Or that they're kind of neutral. Maybe even better. Alright. Interesting. Bam. And this, let's see here. Magnet ballast tank, right? That's the one with the lure we set up like that, right? So this one should actually sink then. If we had no targets nearby, that is. Very cool stuff. It's pretty crazy. I think they're gonna try and target the airplanes now. I'll be surprised if anything manages to hit, but let's see here. Ooh. Oh, they're just fired so high, and ooh. Let's see our APS controlled one then. Can we have a really good setup to be able to shoot at it here. Look at that. Come on, come on, come on. Ooh, no, we're too close. We're too close. And the other ones then? They're like swapping targets all over the place. And my breadboard effects is not of course they don't really have time to activate, it's just too close. Yeah. The thing, however, the reason why it's not realistic to use anything other than basically reinforced body is that if we go to explosive, you can see we're at 24,000 health. That's not a lot. It's really not a lot. Of course, if the enemy doesn't have much civs, or honestly, if we fire these underwater, then we have another situation, of course. But generally, civs will be able to take them down when we're talking about battleship scenarios. I think, however, it could be interesting to test if the buoyancy is neutral. So we have a neutral buoyancy there. It seems that the health of the missile isn't really affected too much. It's still like 90,000. Well, of course, given we have a magnet as well, which is not obviously maybe the best. But what if we don't have a magnet? What if we have one reinforced body and one ballast tank set to 0 like that? That could be pretty interesting to see how a system like this would fire. So this is gonna just automatically shoot soon, so we can go and follow this breadboard controlled one into the water and see how it goes. Whoops, locks onto the wrong one. And now it's not skimming on the surface or anything, it's just being straight. Wow, this is probably a good way to target submarines. You know, this may not be a too shabby system. If we can shoot at submarines, that's pretty cool. We can have it as a submarine killer. We can basically use this underwater. That's a nice pneumatic gun. That is cool. Well, for our own enjoyment, we're just gonna spawn in the crossbones and enjoy some action. See how the crossbones civs is dealing against them. Of course, they're gonna try and shoot them down, but the crossbones civs isn't that scary. This is... oh no! It didn't go close enough. For non-submarine uses, that's probably better to have them jump at the surface. Yeah, definitely. Oh, and also that was a no magnet version, right? Never mind. I retract my earlier statement. That was the non-magnet version. So now we can just see the difference between if we have a magnet and if we don't have a magnet. Nice. 1, 2, 3. We basically get... so 3 times 335, that's basically 1,000 meters. So it will go about 1,000 meters before they get activated. So when they are here, closing in on it, they are activated. That is sure. Wow. The incendiary variant is actually no joke. Using that incendiary against weaker targets that are not battleships with super civs, that's actually a neat idea. Having it sneak up here, and that was the Thumper variant, right? I just can never remember which one is which. That is Thumper, that is with no... and yeah, by the way, the incendiary variant has no oxidizer, does it? So we'll need to fix that, of course. Looks like the APS controlled one is the incendiary, so let's set it up with like 50% oxidizer and a lot of intensity, and it should be much better. Whenever this is firing, right now. And wow, okay, we just have to wait for the yellow one to come in. Look at that, it's sneaking around, and it started some nasty fires here. Using this to basically apply fire bombs is probably a pretty neat idea. This is the one we set up without the magnet, right, for the breadboard. This is of course a bad idea. We want a magnet, but let's swap the reinforced body to a frag 180. And there we go. The pink one is coming in there, and bam! 90,000 damage in frag. That's significant. We actually built a pretty decent weapon system. I don't know if that should surprise me, but it kinda does. Big thanks to Povrax again and Omicron for submitting those new ideas with Bread and Lua like that. But also, thanks to you in the comments on the earlier video, that was really insightful as well, with just using an APS gun at a slow speed to basically shoot the shell. Wow. Crossbones is dying. This is... and also using this system to just make the enemy LAMs and anti-torpedo shells. You know what? I think we may need to install something like this on the Gimli class, unless it's considered jank. Can you tell me in the comments, do you think this is jank or is it a valid weapon system? That I would like to know. Oh, yes. One thing that's a bit interesting though is that if we were to like use this this system, we could of course make it a little bit less jank. Instead of using a huge like that. Oh yeah, never mind. That's the issue. It doesn't exist reverse launch huge missiles. That was the reason we didn't do that. That's why it's a bit jank, right? But also if we add a large missile, so we can just, for an example here, we have a large missile and we got a reverse launch large missile. We can just set up some examples, whoops, and add a bunch of ejectors on them. Everything in beautiful pink, don't ask me why. This one is gonna be, well, both of them are gonna have a fair share of problems, but whatever. We can actually, okay, never mind. We don't need to pause the game. So this one is the reverse launch, and this is the forward launch. The forward launch needs a Thumper head, and they both should be set to forwards. And basically, you can see here that the reverse launch one is just outspeeding the forward launch one, even though it has a Thumper head. If we check in detail, their launching speed is at 150 meters per second, and the reversed one is 170. That's just, don't ask me why, that's just how it is. For the forwards launch version, however, we can increase the speed by adding a short-range thruster, and launching speed will now be 250 meters per second. And you may think this is great. It really isn't, because even though we have this unpropelled thing, it still gets affected by drag eventually. And now you can see the little slower reverse launch one is just eating past it anyways. And that's something we actually did find out in the previous test. But, well, if you didn't see that video, it's like a month ago, I understand. So that's why I'm telling you that now. The breadboard variant is slightly better, but due to the issue where we need to make it like we need to have an AI breadboard, so we need to have it on the mainframe. It's much less plug and play. The Lua version may probably be the best version eventually, but since that also has its, I don't know how to fix that and make it great, that's also not the best idea either. So I suppose what we should do is take the huge one for APS-based system and continue working on this in particular. And if this is a bit jank, we could do a reverse launch large version instead, or perhaps we can add that when we set this up in a reasonable way. Well, I'm tinkering a little bit with effects here, but I basically set up a neat little system here. So if we should look at it a little bit quickly here to see just the weight of the components. Here we have the APS system. It fires a slug, a simple hollow point. And, well, it is then firing the other things. So I set it up inside of here to basically, when the advanced cannon fires, it fires the missiles as well. And then we have a little bit of a smoke effect there too. So I think that looks pretty neat, and I'm just tinkering around a little bit with the effects. But I think it's pretty cool. And as you see, they just pop in there and create fires. So the default version of this I just went for incendiary, and I'm gonna save it down in the folder. There is always 1.5 million extra things to do. One thing I will do with this system is I'm gonna make basically a chain gun in automatic weapon system with this, so we basically can stack up a lot of these and just fire them in a rather quick succession. I think that would be pretty cool. Other than that, thanks a lot for watching. This is your host Eric, and I'll be seeing you in some future videos. Check out the GMODISM channel and the Relaxism channel too for some more content. The GMODISM channel has extra from the depth content, of course, and also go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and check out our From the Depth podcast if you haven't already. This is your host Eric, and I'm signing out. Thanks a lot for watching.